We've been covering the shadow mental health pandemic plaguing Australians as they navigate the new world of restrictions and lockdowns. There's been a significant surge in people, particularly young people, suffering mental health issues. But there are massive waiting lists for those needing care. Joining me now is Betty Chetcuti, who is a psychologist based in Hawthorn and part of the Australian Association of Psychologists. Betty, thank you for joining us this evening. We've seen an increase in calls to Kids Helpline. We've seen data showing a sharp jump in suicidal ideation and self-harm amongst young people. Are all age groups being impacted by what we see experiencing now, or is it concentrated in that younger demographic?
Thank you. Good evening, Rita. We are seeing a lot of choice and control that is contributing to a huge spike in anxiety, hopelessness, helplessness, and it's across all age groups. But what's really concerning is that we're seeing a lot of younger children and we're seeing a lot more younger children, and the intensity of their experiences is quite alarming. And it's something that I didn't personally expect or predict, but it's really intensified over the last 10 days or so, and it's just very concerning.
Do you think that's going to intensify even further with the news we heard today? There would have been a lot of young people hopeful that there was going to be some sort of a plan, that they would be able to go back to school or see their friends, and the news is pretty bad, both in Victoria and New South Wales. It looks like school is going to be something that, you know, at best case scenario, they'll have a few weeks in term 4. So yes. Do you expect things to get worse with that news, or is it just, is that not really an issue? Is it more the breakup of the routine and the isolation that's causing them this distress?
Yeah. Well, routine is fundamental, and what the children are missing out on is all those other sporting groups that they used to belong to, you know, where they had coaches and, you know, other people taking care of them. So it wasn't just, you know, inside the home with their parents. And as lovely as that is, it's not a part of their developmental process, and that is being severely interrupted. And that is what adults can't properly appreciate, because we didn't have that happen to us. I didn't have it happen to me. And young children are, you know, pretty much from primary school years till their early 20s and up to their early 30s, they're learning to differentiate from their parents and, you know, become adults and young adults. And, you know, we're seeing young children who are now completely depressed. And what's the point? They don't want to get out of bed. I had a gorgeous young boy today, 14 years of age, say a lot of his mates don't want to leave the bedroom. They're just kind of depressed and not feeling like there's a point to be getting up out of bed. A lady in her early 30s, just really stressed about her future. You know, she's got plans to, you know, want to travel. That's what people do, to have children. And they're just feeling like, what type of a world are we bringing our families into? Do we want to do this? So whilst for me, I've had children, I've travelled the world, I still do not like lockdown. I have gone through those normal developmental processes, and this is what the pandemic and the lockdowns are severely interrupting in ways that, you know, as psychologists, we understand this because we know what the normal developmental processes are for human beings at different stages of the life cycle. But it's something that has not been considered, and young children are suffering and struggling. The self-harm that has come through to my office is alarming. It's very concerning. Oh. The depression, the anxiety, it's concern.
And we're hearing about kids who've previously not had any issues in this area, kids who were straight A students, happy, vibrant, who didn't have a history of mental health issues, who are now needing care. Is that been your experience in the clinic as well?
Yeah, absolutely, Rita. So when I question people, you know, I'm going to really target it in on the children. And people in their 20s and up until early 30s, they are saying that, you know, this started at the beginning of this lockdown 6, or it started, you know, during the pandemic, and they didn't, you know, you look at these children, you look at the family, they don't have any other risk factors, what's called an adverse childhood experience, which is something where we use to assess risk. They don't have any of those. They have got the, you know, the family, the very supportive family, access to great schools, you know, finances aren't an issue. families together. There's been no other substance abuse. There's so many issues that contribute to people, kind of needing additional support. These children haven't had those issues, but they've been plummeted into this state of, helplessness, powerlessness, because what has been taken away from them is choice and control. They can't, go and play with their mates the way that they used to, or continue on with their sporting. I had a client yesterday cancel, and I just, he texted me, gorgeous, and he said, "Oh, do you mind if we move it tomorrow?" And it was 3:30, and I said, "Oh, you're going to hang out with your mates?" And he goes, "Yes." I'm like, "Perfect, good call, mate." I said, "I'll see you tomorrow at lunchtime when you can swap out of a class, but go hang out with your mates," because that's what's really important for him.
Absolutely. And just lastly, we're hearing that there is enormous wait times for kids that are needing attention as soon as possible, months, and in regional areas up to 2 years. Is there anything we can do about that? Because if you've got a child who's distressed, who needs help, it would just be absolutely heartbreaking to have to wait such a long period before they can see a professional.
Yeah, it's extraordinarily distressing for families when they can't either find a psychologist or they need to wait that amount of time. It's completely unacceptable. It's worse in regional, remote and rural Australia. And we have a situation at the moment where, aside from the wait to see a psychologist, there's a limit on the number of sessions that they can see a psychologist for, and that impacts access and that impacts treatment. And then there's also a really important issue in terms of the cost of the session. So while psychologists have their usual professional fee, what we've been working with the government to do is to increase the Medicare rebate to $150. And currently there's a major differential in terms of 70% of registered psychologists who are trained to treat complex, severe and chronic health conditions, as well as dealing with the impacts of lockdown. Clients of those psychologists only receive $88.25, and it's just not sufficient when you've got a professional fee where they're going to be out of pocket around $100 and something compared to
and at a time.
Yeah, they need it. They need the help.
At a time when people, when finances for a lot of people are really tight. I mean, this is a pandemic where some people's salaries haven't shifted, but others have lost everything they've worked for. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Betty. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rita.